Rights to freedom is dead. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and my sisters. Welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I am your host, Afro Elite. Before we get started, please make sure that you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any future content, and we're on our way to 10K, and all of that helps the reach and the growth of the channel. And for everything that you guys do, sincerely thank you very much. Now, Danny Masterson, he was on the show That 70s Show in the late 90s. He played Stephen Hyde. He was a popular character or whatever the case. He, after That 70s Show, he kind of was in some other things, but that's where most people know him from. He has been convicted for 30 years to life for violating, and you know what we mean when we say violating two different women. He's accused of violating a third, but he was not convicted. The jury did not convict him on that third woman. Nobody knows the details to that. Maybe her story was kind of flimsy or whatever the case is, but he was convicted on 2 counts of that, and he's facing 30 years to life, which means he's not even eligible for parole until 25 years because of those convictions. Let's look into it.
Tonight, the well-known actor Danny Masterson from That 70s Show sentenced to 30 years to life in prison after his conviction on 2 counts of rape. His victims confronting him in the courtroom and what they said. Here's ABC's Zareen Shah from California tonight.
Tonight, the maximum penalty for Danny Masterson, a judge sentencing the actor to 30 years to life in prison for the rapes of 2 women 2 decades ago. What message does this sentencing send?
I think it shows that there is justice.
It was a stunning fall from grace for the one-time star of That 70s Show.
I love Camaros, Zeppelin, and French fries in that order.
Prosecutors painted a portrait of a predator who spiked the drinks of his 2 victims so he could rape them. The women and Masterson were all members of the Church of Scientology at the time. Jane Doe won today, saying through tears, "I wish I'd reported him sooner to the police." The women claimed the church harassed them after they reported the rapes, something the church has strongly denied.
I do not at all believe the church whatsoever. I can't prove it, but I believe that Danny used his position in the church and he targeted people in the church because he knew he would have backup because of the fact that he has pull in the church that the other women didn't have. So he would have backup to kind of use that as leverage to say, hey, y'all don't want to lose y'all position in the church, right? So, it's best to kind of not say anything, because I don't think it's a coincidence that all of the victims, because he was convicted for 2, but there was a third one that the jury did not convict him on. I don't believe that it's a coincidence at all that all 3 of the victims came from the very same place. There's a lot of commonalities within the victims, like he specifically targeted certain people, and the church allowed him to kind of get away with that because they don't want the fallback on a high-ranking member of their church to be going around doing that under their watch.
Jane Doe 2 today telling Masterson, "You relish in hurting women. It is your addiction. It is without question your favorite thing to do." Prosecutors today grateful for the testimony.
I know these victims have been waiting a long time for this day. It's been a number of years getting here. They've been through a lot.
The 47-year-old actor showed no emotion as he was sentenced, but his wife at times sobbing. Actress Bijou Phillips, who has stood by Masterson, waved to her husband as he blew her a kiss before being escorted from the courtroom. And David, the Church of Scientology denies ever harassing Masterson's accusers. They say they have no policy discouraging members from reporting criminal conduct. Instead, the church says its policy demands that Scientologists abide by all laws of the land.
Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I do not believe, and this is me personally, my personal opinion. I can't state this for a fact, but this is my personal opinion. I don't believe that the Church of Scientology, 1, did not know about it. I don't believe that they did not know at all. And 2, I don't believe that they encouraged or didn't try to threaten or anything like that to protect Danny. I don't believe that they did not put themselves in the situation by saying, hey, y'all want to be a part of the church now? come on, y'all gonna tell on him. He's bringing more money than you. He's bringing more people in than you. So y'all, if he out, y'all out. So I don't, and this is just my personal opinion about things that I've heard. I can't prove this for a fact. Of course, the church has denied all of this stuff, so I can't prove it. But this is my opinion. I believe that Danny did it, at least to one of them. And then when he saw that he could kind of get away with it because he had the backup from the church, I think that he continued to do it with other women too. And then more than likely, that was not his only times doing that. I believe the 3 women who might have fessed up and tried to, get him convicted, I don't think that those are the only women he's done that to. Another thing is too, the situation is that he put something in their drink, he drugged them, and then he violated them. Now, what's a coincidence that I see is that the same people who were on Bill Cosby about what they said he did, that's what they said Bill Cosby did, and then it was proven that he actually did not do that, but they said Bill Cosby did that same thing. And you had Me Too, they was all out, they was trying to lynch Bill Cosby. There were magazines putting the victims all up on magazines, doing interviews with everybody, had an opinion. Everybody fully believed all of his accusers, no matter how flimsy and inconsistent their story was, no matter how much they were proven in the court to have lied several times about when stuff happened, what happened, when it happened, all of that. The media itself backed up every single woman who just came out of nowhere and accused Bill Cosby, all of them. Now, the media is not really putting that much pressure on Danny Masterson. You don't see a whole bunch of Me Too interviews. You don't see a whole bunch of people even on Twitter or social media being all like, oh my God, we have to protect women from rich and powerful men. Nobody's really doing that with Danny. This is not nearly getting as much attention, and he's actually been convicted of it. Before Bill Cosby was even convicted, they pulled the Cosby Show. They were removing his degrees and all of that stuff from the schools he attended to. They weren't returning the donations, mind you, but they were removing degrees. They were shunning him. They were outcasting Cosby prior to Cosby being convicted. Cosby was just accused, and everybody was taking away shows, specials, cartoons, all of what Bill Cosby has done. They were erasing Bill Cosby off the board. Nobody's doing that with Danny Masterson and That 70s Show and any other project he's worked on. Nobody's even talking about removing That 70s Show. That's on Peacock. You can see it on Amazon Prime. Nobody's talking about removing that or anything else he's been a part of. Nobody's talking about that. Now, what's also interesting is, speaking of That 70s Show, you had other actors, co-stars of That 70s Show, Ashton Kutcher and his wife Mila Kunis. I always keep thinking of Now, what's interesting is in That 70s Show, you had other stars, Ashton Kutcher, and you had Mila Kunis, who are engaged, they're married, and they were partnered. They had a close relationship with Danny for years on and off the show. Way after the show had finished airing, they were still very close to Danny Masterson. Everybody, or for the most part, everybody had a close relationship. I'm not going to say everybody, but those 3 had a very close relationship on the show and off the show. So they gave out a letter of character, like a character witness, and they gave that to the judge to kind of have the judge feel a little bit of sympathy for Danny before the conviction, so the judge can give him a slap on the wrist, because they had felt that the judge and the jury was going to convict him. They knew that ahead of time. This wasn't after the conviction. Mind you, Ashton, Miller, nobody's really acting so surprised about this situation, but they had already kind of like, oh, he's probably going to go down for it. Let's talk to the judge so he can kind of get a lighter sentence. But what had happened was that the fact that they wrote a character letter got exposed to the public, and now everybody's looking like, hey, why are you guys going to back him up once he was convicted and it was proven that he had done these things to these women? How are you still going to back this person up? So this is an apology video that they have both done. Let's look into it.
We are aware of the pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
We support victims. We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years.
Okay, so they're putting all of this, they're trying to kind of deflect and push the blame off on the family, saying, well, the family have reached out to us and asked us to write character letters to send to the judge. So apparently they wouldn't have done nothing if the family didn't ask them to. But let's say for the sake of the argument that they're telling the truth. Let's say that they did not have to write character letters just because the family requested them to do so. They didn't have to do that. They complied because they quote unquote wanted to appease the family. That's the only reason they complied, huh?
So that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read.
Okay, the thing is that they want to say the family asked them to do it. And let's just say they would have not said anything at all if the family, even if that's their friend for 25 years, if the family didn't ask them to do it. Okay, fine. Let's just say that. The thing about that is they still didn't have to write character letters just because the family requested them to do so. They did it because they wanted to do it. And I don't even know if the family asked them to do it or not, but they were more than willing to comply to the family's request. So that means that they kind of wanted to do it anyway. And this is something that happens all of the time, especially in white society with celebrities and high places and connections. They like to kind of wink to the judge and try to slip them a couple dollars or help a campaign or anything like that under the rug. And they like to pass stuff under the table to kind of save people from getting slaps on the wrist. But in this situation, the letter got out, or the fact that they wrote a letter got out, and the public is putting them on blast.
And not to undermine the testimony of the victims or reach homicize them in any way. We would never want to do that. And we're sorry if that has taken place.
Our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
Now, in my opinion, I can't prove this. Now, they didn't or won't have to prove that the family had reached out to them first. They can say, oh, well, the family asked us to do it. Okay, yeah, that maybe, but maybe not. You guys already had a really good relationship with him beforehand, so the family didn't need to do that. You guys probably did it on your own. And even if they didn't, even if the family asked them to kind of reach out to the judge and send a character letter to the judge, which they should have just stayed out, the family didn't have to twist their arm and make them do it. The family couldn't have made them do it. They were more than willing to risk really their reputation, even though they didn't think they were going to do that because they thought the judge was going to be on code and they didn't know it was going to go out to the public. But they were really willing to risk that by sending a character letter to the judge on behalf of Danny Masterson, which means that they kind of wanted Danny to kind of get a slap on the wrist and go because they like Danny and they know Danny. That's the reason for that. But what else is interesting is that in 2002, Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, they had an interview about their relationship on That 70s Show and how Danny Masterson had a little bit to do with their first kiss and their first interaction. So let's look at this video.
She was 14 when we started the show. I was like 19, right?
Right.
Okay, before he continues, just notice that he says, I was like 19. Now, he was born in February 1978, and the show aired in August 1998. Okay, so he might have been 20 years old at this time, depending on when this situation he's talking about happened. It could have happened before or right before he turned 20, or he might have been 20 years old at this time. So at this time, he might be 20 and she's 14, or it might be 19 and she's 14. But to be totally honest, because of how the show started kind of in the end of the summer, he was more than likely 20 years old instead of 19.
And they're like, okay, you guys are going to be making out in this scene. And I'm like thinking like, wait, this is like slightly illegal,
that's
right?
probably your first kiss ever, right?
It was my first kiss. Where's someone bet you made with Danny about our first kiss?
Mind you, this is the same Danny Masterson that got convicted for 30 years. Okay? This is the same Danny.
No, it wasn't the first kiss. It was like a second or third kiss.
It was like the first week.
No, it was not the first week.
Whatever. Let me tell you what happened.
No, let me tell you what happened.
No. Okay,
I want you to pay very close attention to body language in this situation. Now, as Ashton was telling the story, Mila interrupts her to talk about Danny's bet and then saying it was the first week, their first kiss. And his body, oh no, it wasn't the first week. This was like the second or third kiss or whatever. So they're going back and forth about whether this was the first kiss or I guess the third or second kiss. And then she says, okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. He tries to stop her and says, no, I'm going to say it. And she goes on to tell the story anyway. And he faces away and he has his hand over his face almost as if he's going to get caught with something. Like he fears getting in trouble with something.
I never kissed a guy, so I was so, Ash was attractive, and I was a 14-year-old little girl, and I was extremely scared for my life.
Sure.
And he was very nice about it. He was like, oh, don't worry. So I was like, okay. Then Danny goes and goes, dude, I'll give you $10 if you French kiss her.
Okay, that little backstory that she just told about being nervous and Ashton kind of comforting her and making her feel comfortable, this sounds like the first kiss by that backstory, because if this was the second or third kiss in the second or third week or so, she wouldn't feel so nervous. So by her little backstory, it's kind of adding up that this was their first kiss in their first interaction.
What would you stick your tongue in my mouth or some?
What? No. For
$10.
You're making it sound like it was like really. Okay, Dan, we had a little side bet going.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, peep game that Ashton is acting kind of nervous. His whole body language, the fact that he wasn't looking, he seemed kind of confident when he first started telling the story. It was when Miller started going around and giving more details about the story, because he was not going to bring up the bet at all. He was going to leave that part out. He was just going to bring up how weird it was, their first little kiss and interaction. She started going into details that he wasn't going to go into. Now he's acting kind of, oh, no. His high-pitched voice, his body language, all of that stuff is looking like he feels kind of nervous or guilty.
Which was?
It wasn't very
as to whether or not, you're kissing on the show or boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
You would use tongue, right, Rosie? You would.
It depends what kind of an actor you are, I guess.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I'm going to say the show was weird for pairing them up like that. While she was 14 years old in real life, in the show she was older, but in real life, you're going to have a 14-year-old be in a relationship with someone who's 19 or 20 years old, and they're going to have makeout scenes. Ashton, at the time of the show, was a legal adult, and she wasn't even old enough to drive. So the fact that they even paired them up was weird, and especially to have actual makeout scenes was very weird anyway. But the thing is, though, what he's talking about is, okay, yeah, if you're a boyfriend and girlfriend, you're going to use tongue. But that's real relationships. They did not have to use tongue in those shows. That's something Ashton wanted to do.
So Danny bets me like $20 that I wouldn't do it. And of course I'm like, yeah, sure. What's the deal? You know?
Okay, keep in mind, Danny Masterson is 2 years older than Ashton Kutcher. So at this time, let's say that Ashton was 19, because they both agreed that he was 19. Let's say he was 19 years old. That would make Danny Masterson 21 years old. So a 21-year-old bet a 19-year-old to tongue kiss a 14-year-old.
The cop showed up and you got arrested, pretty much.
Now, I don't think they put that in the character letter. I don't think that they put that story about how Danny bet Ashton to make out with Mila Kunis, who was 14 years old. I don't think they put that in the character letter that they sent to the judge. It was probably all, oh, he's a good guy, he donates to this orphanage, and he has a puppy, and it was all of that. But Danny, according to what they said, they didn't know that they were really telling on Danny in the future. They didn't know that this interview was going to, in the future, can be probably evidence to convict Danny. But based off of that video, that interview right there, it seems like Danny has always kind of been a creep. And there was always kind of rumors about Danny. There was always rumors. So, you know, I don't really know if it was just something he didn't do, because there was rumors. And then based off of that interaction, y'all the one giving him a character letter. But you see on the interview, y'all saying he's encouraging you to stick his tongue in the mouth, or her to stick your, whatever they were trying to do. Danny was in there kind of egging that on and betting to see that, like a little pervert. So I don't know if Danny has always been like that, but it kind of seems, it really, really does, that he's always been that way, and that Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis are blind to it, or that's their friend, so they're going to ignore it. But brothers and sisters, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think of Danny Masterson's conviction? What do you think of Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis? What do you think of all of that? Let me know that in the comment section below. Also, you should be following me on my various social media pages, which is Afro Elite on Instagram and the Afro Elite on Twitter. Please do not forget to leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, so that way you don't miss out on any future content. All of that helps the reach and the growth of the channel. We're on our way to 10K. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for everything that you guys do. Now, with that being said, my brothers and my sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all, and you all have a good one.